I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We do have one presentation to make this morning. I'm going to ask Mr. Charlie Hunt to step up to the podium. Mr. Hunt is the Deputy Director of the Department of Health and Environment, and I've prepared a proclamation proclaiming National Public Health Week beginning, I believe it's April 4 through 10. So, Mr. Hunt, any comments that you would like to make?
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and good morning, Commissioners. It is my honor and privilege to represent the Johnson County Department of Health and Environment and our partners for the proclamation of April 4 through 10, 2022 as National Public Health Week. For more than 25 years, communities across the United States have come together during the first week of April to recognize the contributions of public health and to highlight important issues. The theme for this year's is Public Health is Where You Are. Mr. Chairman, in your State of the County address on Tuesday, you highlighted how we are stronger together, and that sentiment certainly embodies the work of public health and the importance of community in improving the quality of life for those who live, work, learn, play, and pray here. The challenges of COVID-19 over the past 2 years have clearly demonstrated the importance of partnerships as we have worked to protect and address the needs of the community, and we greatly appreciate the support. To celebrate this year's National Public Health Week, beginning on Monday, April 4th, we will be featuring a short video each day that focuses on a particular theme and highlights important work we are doing as a community. And we look forward to sharing these stories with you. So thank you again for your support and recognition of National Public Health Week.
Okay. Well, Mr. Hunt, thank you very much for your leadership, and appreciate all the work that our Public Health Department employees have done. I mentioned this the other day. For the past 2 years, it's been a significant effort on everybody's part. So thank you very much, and thanks to all of our employees. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
At this time, we will turn to the public comment portion of our agenda. If those who are present or virtually wish to comment, would request that you limit your comments to 2 minutes. There will be a modem on the podium advising you of as the time runs out. For those who might exceed that 2 minutes, the chair is required to ask you to conclude your comments. So first, clerk will read the first speaker.
Virtually, we have Don Kamencik. Don Kamencik.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Good morning. My name is Dawn Kamencik, and I live at 10834 West 116th Terrace. I am speaking on behalf of my mother, Carol Sally, and myself. We are both physically unable to drive. We are very fortunate to live in Johnson County, where you provide transportation programs. Thank you for that. We use Special Edition, Microtransit, and Freedom on Demand. These are rideshare programs, so there is an amount of waiting and picking up or dropping off of other people. This is not a problem and perfectly understandable. These problems happened this month, though. My mother's ride with Special Edition on Z-Trip was late. The driver got around the corner, had left the back door open, and my mother's walker had fallen out and was laying in the street in front of our house. She was over an hour late for her appointment. I used Microtransit to go to Costco for groceries. Z-Trip refused to take me home because I had 6 bags. I tried Freedom on Demand, but they didn't have anyone in the area for 2 hours. I rescheduled with Microtransit for 3 people for my 6 bags. I ended up waiting 2.5 hours freezing in the cold. I used Freedom on Demand, Z-Trip again, to go to Menards. I scheduled at 6:50 p.m. I called every 20 to 40 minutes. The store closed at 9 p.m. and I was still there. My ride was automatically canceled at 9:04, even with calling over and over. At 9:22, I rescheduled it. I got a ride home on my own at 9:40. Z-Trip called me at 12:08 in the morning to tell me that my ride was 36 minutes out. That would have been 6 hours waiting outside in the cold, alone from 9:30 p.m. until almost 1 a.m. Z-Trip dismissed me with, okay, or what would you like me to do when I called? This is not safe. Leaving the back door of a car open while driving, leaving people in the cold for hours or in the dark and alone until 1 a.m. No one should be treated this way, especially the disabled and elderly. I am here to make sure these instances don't happen again. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Next speaker.
Now we have Cassie Woolworth. Cassie Woolworth.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Fantastic. Hi, Cassie Woolworth, Olathe, Kansas. Y'all know me. It is kind of fitting that next week is Public Health Week, as you are also on Monday at 2 p.m. discussing solar energy, which is renewable, and the clean air would help with public health. Did you know the energy the sun provides to the earth for 1 hour could meet global energy needs for a year? Solar energy is the cleanest, most abundant renewable energy source available, and the U.S. has some of the richest solar resources in the world. Solar technologies can harness this energy for a variety of uses, including generating electricity, providing light, a comfortable interior environment, heating and water for domestic, commercial, and industrial use. It seems renewables the way to go. Whether the cost is high, it is offset because solar technologies are constantly developing, so it's assuming the prices will go down in the future, and once you get it developed, your prices go down. You can find thermodynamic panels that will make it non-weather dependent. I know it uses a lot of space, but Johnson County has a lot of buildings, and they could be retrofitted with roofs that have solar panels. Renewable energy is the wave of the future as coal and oil become more and more expensive, and thus there are limited supplies unless somebody has a dinosaur in their pocket. Renewable energy gives us back the earth, clean air, clean water, and energy independence. Independence, not subject to control by others. Aren't you ready for energy independence? You're already working with electronic vehicles, so you know it can be done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now in person, we have Ben Hobart. Ben Hobart.
Ben Hobart, Westwood Hills. In my comments last week, I misstated a fact and offer this correction. Mr. Ariola's assertion that things were pretty bad out there was made when there were a total of 32 Johnson Countyans of all age groups with a positive COVID test in the polled hospital's intensive care units. It was not 32 children, as I erroneously stated. 32 people does not strike me as pretty bad in a population of over 600,000 Johnson Countyans, particularly given no recognition of other medical conditions. Mr. Chairman, in response to my comments last week, you stated in relevant part, Dr. Ariola is highly qualified to hold the position that he has with the Department of Health. The position is not the concern. The decisions made are the concern. Mr. Ariola is not a doctor, is not an elected official, is not trained in virology or epidemiology based on his vitae. And this board should not be holding out his personal judgments for public policy purposes when his judgments are not informed by specific training or clinical experience about the virulence and or potential spread of a virus among our population. His PhD in environmental toxicology deals with toxins in the environment, whether from manufacturing processes, agricultural, or the oil and gas industry. The latter undoubtedly emphasized, given that his training was at Texas Southern University. This is not training in virology or epidemiology. This board should not have him lobby school districts and municipalities with respect to masks or any other medical intervention or treatment. Further, in the February 3rd meeting, Ms. Holtschut was queried about how many deaths in JoCo hospitals were of people who had 2 clot shots and a booster. She indicated that the department will continue to pursue that information. I have heard no update on Johnson Countyans who died after receiving clot shots. Please provide an update, and please don't follow the CDC's definitional deceit, treating any illness at any time until 14 days after the shots are complete as being that of an unvaccinated person.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we have Andrew Cross. Andrew Cross.
Good morning. Pfizer sponsored the Oscars. They have a new alopecia drug in third-stage clinical trials, and Will Smith commits assault over it on Oscars live TV without an arrest. That is aside from the FOIA request getting NIH emails noting the deletion of SARS-CoV-2 genetic sequencing in their genetics databases. The first black woman, Supreme Court Justice, cannot define woman. Woman is an adult female, in case your libraries and schools did not know. President Biden announced last week that there is a food shortage in his speech in Europe. Ukraine is 3 times the size of Kansas and was an agrarian exporter, while Russia is an energy exporter, not the U.S. Johnson County is an energy-dependent county as it overdevelops from agrarian to shipping hub. It is $4.79 for diesel as of yesterday. This affects all transportation, building, and multiplies into all other sectors such as food and housing. U.S. representatives are talking that it is going to cost $400 more in fuel per farmed acre. A suggestion is farming conservation reserve program land, which is used for animal habitats. After maybe a year of farming, I'm sure that you could think of grabbing it for development instead of animal habitats or food production. The Panasonic battery plant that we've just gotten approved through NDA with lots of legislators will bring thousands of tons of lethal material near the metro area, but that land is already poisoned. Let's see here. But back to the food shortage. It creates more homeless where we have affordable housing shortage here, and I have unverified reports that they are getting arrested in grocery stores this week.
Thank you.
I'm surprised it's still 2 minutes.
I would make one brief comment, the comment about the transit issues. For those who run into difficulties, please contact Mr. Josh Powers, who's in our planning department. And I know Josh has been contacted on a couple of items recently. He is the staff person that can quickly respond to any issues involving transit. So thank you very much. I'm going to ask the clerk to please read the notes for the record.
Thank you. The chairman noted for the record that pursuant to KSA 75-5297, the Chief of Police, Francis R. Donchez, Jr. of Overland Park, the largest city, has appointed Deputy Chief Eric Houston to the Community Corrections Advisory Board to fill the law enforcement representative, largest city designee through June 30th, 2025. The chairman noted for the record that he would sign the following: partial release of easement for the Consolidated Main Sewer District due to the removal of sanitary sewer line in the vicinity of 48th Street and Nolan Road in the city of Shawnee. Partial release of easement for the Consolidated Main Sewer District due to the removal of sanitary sewer lines in the vicinity of 183rd Street and Flum Road in the city of Overland Park. Partial release of easement for the Consolidated Main Sewer District due to the removal of sanitary sewer line in the vicinity of 75th Street and Grandview Street in the city of Merriam. An agreement with the city of Overland Park for the stormwater system renewal project known as West 67th and Floyd Street. An agreement with the city of Overland Park for a stormwater system renewal project known as West 100th Terrace and Linden. And an agreement with the city of Overland Park for a stormwater system renewal project known as Rowe Avenue and Granada Street.
Thank you very much. That concludes notes for the record. I do have one request before we move to the consent agenda. I'm asking that a non-agenda item, an appointment that needs to be made to the Civil Service Commission be added to the agenda for decision today. The reason for that, there is a meeting that needs to occur before next Thursday, and a full number of Civil Service Commissioners need to be present for that. So that would accomplish that. Ms. Allenbrand,
Mr. Chair, I have a motion when you're ready for it.
that's fine. Go right ahead.
I move to approve to add the Civil Service Board appointment James Terrones to today's agenda.
Second, Hanslick.
Allenbrand made the motion. Hanslick seconded the motion to add the item as noted to the agenda today as a consent item. Any further questions or comments? Mr. Ashcraft?
Just a clarification, is that Jim Terrones?
Terrones, yes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It says James.
All right. Clerk, please call the roll.
Chairman, we do have this on the action
Okay,
part
the
of
action agenda will be fine.
Yes.
So noted.
Commissioner Fast.
Aye.
Commissioner Myers.
Myers, aye.
Commissioner O'Hara.
Yes.
Commissioner Hanslick.
Hanslick, aye.
Commissioner Ashcraft.
Yes.
Commissioner Allenbrand.
Aye.
And Chairman Eilert.
Aye. I have 7 votes in favor. Motion carried. So this will be the last item on the action agenda. Thank you very much. All right, moving to the consent agenda. Clerk will please read the items.
Item number 1, consider approving the March 10th, 2022 business session minutes. Item number 2, consider approving the appointment of Cynthia Standell, 4th District Representative to the Juvenile Corrections Advisory Board through June 30th, 2024. And item number 3, consider authorizing the Facilities Management Department to add 2 full-time equivalent FTE Grounds Specialist 2 positions for FY 2022 at a cost of approximately $133,000 to be fully funded by the reduction of a contracted services in the amount of $155,000.
Okay. Is there a commissioner who would like to have an item considered separately? Is there anyone present who would like to have an item considered separately? There being no one to be heard, it is back before the commission. A motion would be in order. Ms. Allenbrand.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I approve the consent agenda as written.
Second, Hanslick.
Allenbrand made the motion. Hanslick seconded the motion to approve the consent agenda as presented. Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Fast.
Aye.
Commissioner Myers.
Myers, aye.
Commissioner O'Hara.
Yes.
Commissioner Hanslick.
Hanslick, aye.
Commissioner Ashcraft.
Yes.
Commissioner Allenbrand.
Allenbrand, aye.
And Chairman Eilert.
Eilert, aye. I have 7 votes in favor. Motion carried. Next item on the action agenda.
Item number 4, consider approving the addition of 6 full-time positions to provide security at the Johnson County Administration Building at an annual cost of $564,570, prorated to $314,040 for the remainder of the 2022.
Mr.
And-
Tom,
Excuse me, and the completion of related security improvements to the Johnson County Administration Building at a cost of $147,943, and authorizing the reallocation and expenditure of general fund reserves in the amount of $461,983.
Mr. Thompson.
Good morning, Chairman and Commissioners. Maury Thompson, Deputy County Manager. I'd like to make a few remarks about this item and then ask Sheriff Hayden to comment. I was in the chambers last week when this item was presented, and it was clear to me, and I believe all watching, that there was a lack of a meeting of the minds on this proposal. That led to some conversations over the past week between myself and Sheriff Hayden about some way to continue to move this issue forward. So through those conversations, again, I'd like to share a couple of comments for your consideration this morning. First, I want to acknowledge that the sheriff has made his recommendation, and that is the agenda item before you. And again, not to speak for him, but I believe he will share with you, he believes that continues to be the way to proceed in this matter. So we are here today to talk about some version of a compromise on this item, if you will. I want to make it clear, again, that the sheriff does not believe that this is an adequate way to address this issue, but willing to acknowledge at this time that there's not the will of this body to proceed with the recommendation that he has brought forward. So as a starting point to continue to address needs around security, we believe we've got a logical way to begin addressing the issues he has raised. And that is, if you look at your briefing sheet, alternative 3 would be to provide 2 civilian blue coat positions and make structural security improvements at a cost of $186,894 in 2022. That would be to make the structural modifications to entrances at two different departments within this building, and again, add the 2 blue coat civilians. Second comment is I want to provide a little more clarity, perhaps, around what we mean when we say provide 2 blue coat civilians. I think the impression that may leave, understandably so, that would be 2 staff members full-time in this building here providing security services. That's not how it works. If you have 2, we know that there are leave allowances for one. You've got vacation, sick leave, training. There are other reasons that pull them away from being on duty, if you will, providing security in the building. So your starting point is 2, is not really 2 full-time all the time. Secondly, the intent of this function, this purpose, is to begin to provide some security for this building. We know that functions in this building don't occur only Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. We have significant numbers of evening meetings and other activities. Some, in fact, start before normal business hours, if you will. The intent with these additional 2 staff to actually look at the schedule for this building on a weekly basis and adjust accordingly. So again, the notion that you're going to have 2 people sitting here Monday through Friday 9 to 5 is not accurate. They will adjust accordingly to begin to provide more security for our evening times as well. Next point, I think a little bit of context here. I think it's easy to talk, because this action item talks about additional blue coats for this building. But the way the sheriff manages the security detail or security function is really of a campus nature downtown. We've got this building and the courthouse. This will allow for greater flexibility to shift resources between the 2 as needed. So again, just a little bit of context. I think it's helpful to think about this as a campus rather than just a building. And finally, this body has talked about fairly recently concerns about wayfinding, if you will. The resident who comes to this building, and we all see them, standing downstairs on the first floor trying to find the marquee and figuring out, now where do I go for this? We believe this is also a reasonable way to help with that as well, to have that welcoming face, a blue coat, who can notice individuals who appear to be lost in the building and help direct them to where they need to go. I would also offer that through time, as they become more accustomed to what goes on in this building, maybe even answering simple questions, again, providing a better experience for our residents. So again, just some thoughts from me on this item, and through conversations with the sheriff, again, here to propose alternative 3 today. And with that, ask the sheriff to make some comments.
Sheriff Hayden.
Well said, Maury, thank you. I want to try to change your mindset on this a little bit. I'm the second sheriff that has proposed security for this building. Frank Denning stood here many years ago and said it needed to happen after security analysts said it needed to happen. I agree with him. Those are big shoes to fill. We've had a security expert. Many studies have been done on this building. This building is the most at-risk building in Johnson County government. I can't make that any clearer to you. You guys are in this building 2-3 days a week. This is about this staff in this building and a continuation of government. If somebody would come in here, they can disrupt government operations in Johnson County in an instant. This is about taking care of your staff who are here every day, some nights, all the extra meetings that go on. You look over here, this is a lieutenant that's providing security here today, and Lucky Smith's one of our retired detectives. It's a blue coat. We have cut this as much as we can. I'm really not comfortable putting a blue coat over here by themselves. I'd rather have an armed officer. I can't make it any more clear to you how much at risk this building is. Every expert that is advised and come before you on this dais has told you this building's at risk. Now, you can do it halfway or you can do the job right. I recommend you do it right. It's not about protecting the commissioners or people's limiting their access to this building whatsoever. It's about keeping guns out of this building, plain and simple. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anything else, Mr. Thompson?
No, happy to stand for questions, sir.
Ms. O'Hara?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On the item 3, to provide 2 civilian blue coat positions, that cost of $187,000, that's for the remainder of this year.
That's correct.
And so what would an annual cost be?
Mr. Dugan?
Tom Dugan with the Sheriff's Office. The annual cost is around $176,000 for 2 blue coats.
Okay, so it's more expensive for a partial year, the first.
I'm sorry, the number that is listed in there also includes the structural changes to the 2 lobby
okay.
areas.
Okay, all right. And then, since the pandemic, the traffic in this building has diminished greatly. I come in, and it's pretty empty. So do we have any statistics as to how many people are coming in and out of this building on an annual basis or weekly? Is there some, because if I see one person, I'm going, oh, gee, there's someone from the public that's here. And they are lost and looking for where they need to be. So I think that is an extremely important consideration, that we give people the ability to quickly find where they're wanting to go. And most of them is paying property taxes, but it is confusing.
Yeah. Thank you, Commissioner, for those 2 comments. So for your latter, yes, I agree completely. As to the first about count, I've been making eye contact with Mr. Waters over here. I'm not aware that we've got any counts per se. Joe?
I would say no, we don't have a current, what is our current level? We do have some historical information over the years, and some during the pandemic as we shut down and then began to reopen. But it will trend back up as to the extent to which people can return to wanting to do business with us in person.
And also, we still have a good percentage of our staff working remotely. Is that true?
Yes, and Maury's the interim HR director, so he may be able to, at one time, it was between 20 and 25%. I'm not sure if that still holds. Maury, are you aware?
I don't have the number with me. I would say it's less than that at this point. We'll continue to have some employees work remotely where it makes sense for them and for us. But again, like the public, my sense, and that's all it is, and my sense is we'll see more folks returning to the office over time as well.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Ashcraft?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner O'Hare, I appreciate your question. One of the challenges is we used to have a cafeteria in the basement that drew in the public as well as court personnel, prospective jurors. So I think your observation about the body count is probably valid. And the wayfinding issue, Mr. Waters, has been an issue for some time, and hopefully that can be addressed. Clarify for me, if you could, the 2 lobby construction efforts, about $88,000, is that contingent upon having additional staff, or could that be done separately?
That could be done separately.
Okay. And in terms of options, did we consider part-time contract services to fill in for those events or activities other than using county staff, either sworn or non-sworn?
So 2 responses to that question, Commissioner. We currently do some of that now. Secondly, that was, yes, part of the conversation the sheriff and I had this past week. Again, not to speak for him, but I believe he would state that that is not his recommendation at this time.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Myers.
Thank you, Chair. What is our current security staffing level at the courthouse right now?
32, Sheriff says.
And so it sounds to me like a little bit of this item is trying to utilize a flexible, I'll call it a share program between this building and the courthouse?
Correct.
And 32 security staff does not handle the amount of security needed at the courthouse?
You know, I can give you just about round numbers, but I've got the guy that knows the exact numbers right here. This is Lieutenant Smith.
Good morning, Lieutenant Corey Smith, Court Security Division. We have 25 sworn staff, and then we recently had the addition in January of 6 blue coats or special security officers. We also operate staff out of that pool for the annex building down the street, so they also pool out of that group. And we just got a recent request to extend the hours down there, which is going to take away from that staff additionally for there. So 25 plus 6 of the blue coat positions is what we currently operate with, 1 sergeant and 1 lieutenant. But we are responsible for all 3 of these buildings, but these 2 downtown and then down the way, down Santa Fe a little bit is where we also staff.
And so, and I'm not sure if this was correctly reported or whatever, but I thought I read that we have a 4.5-minute response time to this building in case of an emergency?
Yes, sir. That was a one-time run, but it would be similar to that. We do have to get across the street, which there's some delay with that with traffic. But yes, the response time was about 4 minutes. Yes, sir.
To me, 4.5 minutes it's hard for me to realize that it would be that type of time to respond to a situation of emergency at this building. You know, working in a school district for many, many years, and of course, an incident that just took place at Olathe East, response time of, I just don't know that it was a response time. I don't know what their response time was, but it seemed like they had a pretty quick response once the call went out to get personnel to that building. I would think response time from, whether it's response from security from across the street or wherever that might be, 4.5 minutes just seems unreasonable to me.
Well, that would be the case if they were standing by, ready to come. You could probably get them over here in 2 minutes. We're not light staff. When he said there's 25 officers, that's 3 shifts, 24/7, 24 hours a day. There's 28 courtrooms over there, and the judges expect our officers to respond and be in those courtrooms to stand by, basically as bailiffs, if you will. So they are tied up doing other things. And if they're on the 8th floor of that building, and that's the only one we've got to be able to respond because they're not tied up with a judge, that's who's going to respond. And that's on a normal day. They're tied up doing other things. The response to Olathe schools, we have civil divisions throughout Olathe. Olathe had cars. We even had transport officers in the area. So we had a great response time. I had 15 officers there within half an hour. But 4 minutes is a really good response time responding to an emergency anywhere in the county. Trust me, that's an eternity when there's a problem.
So, again, to me, this item was presented to us as this building. Now, it makes sense to me if there is need and something that needs to be done between our 2 buildings, but that wasn't presented in that manner. And so, you know, as a commissioner looking here at the cost Again, I just think the cost was prohibitive as far as this building is concerned. I would like to look further into understanding what the actual needs and how that sharing would take place, what the expectations would be. I'm just not clear on what we would be agreeing to as what's being presented today versus what was being presented last week. I do think the structural safety items need to take place. I think that's of I think it's all of great importance, but I think that is of immediate importance for many reasons, but one, protecting staff. So again, as far as this item as it's being presented today versus how it was presented before, I would like to have a little bit more time and understanding, more clarity on exactly what we would be talking about.
Point of clarification, Sheriff. I think we all on the dais understand what a blue coat is. There may be folks listening who do not. Could you be more specific in that regard?
Sure. We've modeled it after the federal courthouse, and what they do is, let me give you a big picture on the way this works, is you can hire a retired police officer with abundance of experience. Lucky's a great example. Lucky Smith standing there is one of our blue coats. He was a detective for many, many years. Under KPNF, you can retire at 50 years old with 25 years of service. It takes 15 years to get vested in this system. There's a gap from 50 to 65 where officers need insurance. They need family insurance. It's a very good opportunity for them to be engaged still in law enforcement and in a security type mode to protect the courthouse and this building. They've got a great work record. We understand their professionalism. We bring these officers back and they're a huge benefit. It costs less money overall for retirement benefits and pay. So blue coats are basically a retired officer. It's what they do at the federal courthouse. A lot of troopers are up there, KBI agents work up there. But to answer some of the questions, the security is a division in and of itself. And we have to be able to move officers with different things. I have been backfilling. We're at this point, and you talk about people not being in this building, so there hasn't been anybody in that courthouse for almost 2.5 years. We're backed up 250 jury trials. There's a lot of work that's been backed up over these years. And generally, when people come here and they're paying their taxes, they're not happy, but they're not the problem. The problem is HR, is disgruntled employees, and you got 4,000 employees. Every threat we've had from this building, in this building, has been from disgruntled employees. That's where the threat is. We've done security assessments of all the buildings. You got 92 buildings. We have set, Joe and all of us worked together on coming up with a security plan for the county. Now, I said Frank was here before. Frank was the opinion that the sheriff's office, by golly, should do it. To me and Maury and staff, we've worked together to try to bring it to, there's different elements of security. You've got facilities need to be involved. HR needs to be involved. The sheriff's office needs to be involved in some way. We don't have to do security for all over the county, just the high-risk facilities. And that, at this point, that's the courthouse, 588, and this. I don't want a security guard up here with a whole different mindset for protection in high-risk facilities. This is a high-risk facility, guys, out of all the county. And I'm not interested in taking over the county security. I'm not. There are places we can use private security, and it'll be a great benefit. But this is considered a high-risk facility by anybody that's looked at it. And that's why I'm trying to get you guys to do this thing right. There are a lot of different ways we can do it, but everybody that we've talked to that has expertise in security work says it's right here.
Okay. All right, Mr. Myers, you have a follow-up question, and then Ms. Allenbrand.
Yes, Sheriff, I know with this plan, we're talking about utilizing metal detector at the entrance. Do we use metal detector at the courthouse?
Yes.
We currently are. So, and as far as employees having access to this building, the only way they would have access other than ones that are working in this building would be through our entrance. They don't, their cards don't work. An employee's card does not work.
I will look to Joe and Sheriff and Maury and team, because I'm not sure that detail is completely worked out.
Sure it has.
It is not completely worked out. The operating hours of this building are, 7 to 6 probably typically, but we have plenty of off hours, weekends and things like that.
Yeah.
There's a lot to work through there. We know it'll be challenging, but it's, as the sheriff said, being able to keep guns out of the building is an important thing.
Yes, but I also heard that employees, dissatisfied employees, was one of the major concerns with security, and I'm wanting to make sure that their process would be to come through the same entrance as anybody else.
That's exactly right. We screen everybody, including the judges. We screen the judges. And it's almost becomes, when you do it every day, you know what sets off the equipment, and the relationship is there, and you can still do it in a way that people don't mind it. The courthouse is a routine deal. It'd be, hey, Jeff, how you doing today? You got that pocket knife? And every day that's the thing that goes on. And you have that relationship, and that's key in doing it. And then it doesn't look like it's a forced deal, and it's not.
I'd just make this comment. I think my interest is focused on alternate 3, as was described by Mr. Thompson. And but I'm wondering if, in fact, we need some kind of more specific job description or job activity calendar. Mr. Thompson has explained some of it before there's a large comfort level about hiring 2 additional personnel for this building. I just raised that question.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask you something?
Sure.
What do you know about security, sir?
What do I know about security? I'm not the sheriff's deputy, but I'm aware of activities in this building, and I've observed them over several years, as you have. And I recall the report from the prior sheriff, and that things needed to be done immediately, and that did not happen. So I'm not dismissing the ability for 2 additional personnel assigned to this building, but I'd like to know specifically what those duties would involve. That's my point.
And my point is this. I'm not an expert on security either, but we've consulted every expert, national experts, and they tell us what's needed for this building. I'm just saying, maybe we ought to listen to the experts.
Yeah.
That's my
Okay.
comment.
Thank you. Ms. Allenbrand.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do want to say, being in and out of this building during the week, there are other things that go on in this building, and the numbers are starting to go up. So they have trainings, there's licensing through planning. There's also voting that goes on, zoning and planning meetings, and those happen in the evening. So being flexible with the hours, I think, are very important, because I've attended a lot of those, and those happen at 7 a.m., and I've actually have, stood in the front entryway just helping to tell them where to go. But, I'm willing to try to make a motion to, and I'm willing to make a motion to maybe get something started to approve the 2 civilian blue coats with the improvements. So I don't know, Mr. Chair, can I make that motion, or?
Well,
are we still in
there's some
discussion?
other comments and questions. We'll come back to that. Ms. Hansley.
Thank you. I have 3 questions. First of all, are blue coats armed? That's a big question. So they are armed.
Yes, ma'am, they are, and they're very competent.
Okay, so that's good to know. I think that's very helpful. Second of all, in my observation of the past couple years, it's worked fairly well to anticipate when we're going to have large crowds of people, when we know perhaps a disgruntled former employee or current employee may be coming to the building. And it seems that we've been able to work with the Sheriff's Department to have extra security here during those times of anticipated issues. And so I would assume if we do have 2 blue coat positions here, we would still be able to call upon the sheriff's office to provide additional security if there are, I mean, we won't have this for 10 years, but charter commission meetings, for example, where we would need to depend on those officers.
If we can plan, it's great, but the problem is we can't plan. And right now, I'm a ton of officers short. We can't hire people right now. It's difficult. So that's what makes this harder and harder for us. As Commissioner Meyer said, 4.5 minutes is a ridiculous. It doesn't take that long to run from here to there, but we don't have somebody at the starting line. We've got somebody that's working, and we got to cut them loose. They got to leave, get down to the bottom floor if they're on the bottom floor, and get somebody over here. And that takes a little time. It has been a huge expense, and I would almost challenge, I don't know the exact numbers, but the amount of security that we've provided over this last year is probably more than what we're asking for to do this on an annual basis. Because I've used command staff over here, and that lieutenant is a whole lot more expensive than that blue coat. And we have used command staff a lot of times. You've seen captains standing over here, majors. I've been over here. It's difficult to do it because we know our staff is busy doing other things.
So follow up on that. So what's the difference then between what a blue coat can do and what another officer might be able to do? I mean, if they're armed, they can respond as needed, I assume, in the same way as someone that would take potentially 4 minutes to get here.
Yeah, well, for one thing, this young man's a lot faster than me too. And you want somebody that can handle it physically, that we know can. And not that Lucky's slow, he's pretty good. But blue coats generally, I really don't want them involved in physical altercations. It's a young man's job, and I want to make sure that when we send somebody over.
And women's.
You got players. I've got linemen. And that's what you need is linemen to come over here and do this job sometimes.
You need some good women, too.
Yeah, that's true. No, that's true.
My third question is, you mentioned, I know it was a couple of years ago that the board voted to move security for the county facilities to the Sheriff's Department. And you mentioned a study. To me, it'd be very helpful to see the larger picture because it's, what are we looking at facilities throughout the county so that we can make budgetary decisions. We have limited resources, and how do we best use those resources so that there's security at an acceptable level throughout the county functions. I don't want to in a month have another request. Oh, well, we need to have this at this building. Oh, we didn't know that. So I don't know if there could be some study session or something to say.
Commissioner?
Go over that.
This is Penny. Can I interject something here? I think when we talk about security, we've talked about the audits, and some of those things should be probably done in executive session. I don't know how much But, there are things that we need to be careful about.
Sure, absolutely.
And Commissioner, I've sat behind that dais too, and it's a hard thing. We're experiencing a great amount of growth in Johnson County because it's successful. It's a great place to live. We haven't, there's 92 different facilities. We hired a man to come in, and he's done security assessments on those. The cost is working with facilities and you all to make sure that the money is, we got to do it in steps. But we're starting out with what we think is the most at-risk facilities. And this is where we're starting, because this building is the #1 out of the whole county that we think is at risk. And there are others that have been categorized, but they're not in line yet. So we're trying not to kill the budget. We're trying to be able to give you guys something you can live with, yet keep everybody safe, because there are a number of places that are at risk.
Okay.
Thank you.
Ms. O'Hara, do you have a comment?
Yes, thank you. So, Sheriff, if we take this nearly $600,000 a year and put this into place, and then you're going to be coming to us for requirements of more staff generally and to increase the pay, and these are huge budgetary issues, and I would like to know to take the step of the 2 blue coats and to hear your assessment of how that could increase the security of the building, instead of just saying, if you don't do the whole thing that I'm requesting, then anything that we do is just not even worth even discussing. And then if that's true, then we shouldn't do anything, but I don't think that can't possibly be correct. I mean, if we have 2 blue coats here, that provides some security. And I understand that there's not going to be 2 people here all of the time because of all of the requirements and shifting of staff. But I would just like to hear some comments if we have 1 person and they're going to be down by the entrance, as to what is that going to provide as far as security. And the traffic in this building is greatly diminished, and people are really now so used to doing business online, we're not going to have that same level of foot traffic in this building. And we have, as commissioners, we have a responsibility of allocating our resources. I mean, we can't continue to put burdens on the people of Johnson County unless we have to be extremely careful of every dollar and the effectiveness of that dollar being spent. So this is just step 1 of you coming to us and asking for more money. Would that money be better allocated somewhere else? And I would just like to hear your comments. I mean, I know that you're extremely prejudiced against number 3, but can you just give us some indication as to what level of increased security we could have with 2 additional blue coats? And I mean, that's $176,000 a year.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it's a great question. Basically, if you've got an officer standing down at the door, and I wouldn't, if you approve 2 blue coats, I'm not comfortable with putting blue coats over here. I'm going to have guys fully equipped to be over here, because I know the risk to this building. Once I know it, I can't unknow it. It's better than nothing, but you can identify and we talk about all these improvements up here to the building itself. Once they're in here, it's too late. It's too late. I was just talking to Lieutenant Smith over here. Most of the guns we get at the courthouse are from employees. So once the gun is in here, it's too late for us to be able to do anything. Same thing as what happens with any mass incident. But it may not be a gun. We've had a bomb in the courthouse. We've had people mad at somebody when they left and shot somebody out here in the courtyard. We've had incidences. And the county is so much bigger than it was. But you know, this remote working is a good thing. if it can be done, but it can't be done at the cost of customer service. That's what we do great. I am tilted because my staff's been here the last 2.5 years. We don't have the ability to work from home. A lot of people have, though. Our courts are backed up. A lot of things have been happening, but we don't have that luxury.
Okay, so you're saying that the cost for 2 officers is not going to be $176,000 a year, it's going to be more?
I don't think so,
Or we simply will be allocating for the security in the courthouse of approximately $176,000 a year, and then it'll have to be made up in the budget elsewhere if you choose not to use blue coats?
So let me provide a few points of clarification here, and I'll try to do it in order, maybe to address a number of things that I've heard. First, thanks to Lieutenant Smith for the addition to my description of the campus. It's really 3 buildings, not just the 2. Again, the sheriff treats that as a pool of resource. Secondly, thanks to Joe Waters, just reminded me to your question, Commissioner, about lack of folks in this building, and I responded that my belief is that will gradually increase, maybe not back to where we were, but it will increase. One of those reasons it's going to increase, and pretty dramatically, is during the pandemic, we had really halted all large group trainings of employees around the county. For the most part, that happens in this building downstairs. Those hundreds of people on a daily basis are going to be back. So again, the volume will pick back up in this building. Next, the HR question, Commissioner Hanslick, that you brought up. I want to say, in fairness to the sheriff now, the Human Resources Department, unfortunately, has to call on security on a fairly regular basis. And we call, and the sheriff always provides that service. So we're pulling from his detail now to provide that. I think, as the sheriff would say, we can plan for some of those, obviously, when you're doing a termination. That's a high-risk situation. But we never know when you're going to have a disgruntled employee who may sense that they're nearing that process, who choose to come the day before. So there is some sense of unknown when you're dealing with personnel matters, as I know you all know. And then finally, to your comment or question, Commissioner O'Hara, again, we need to think about this as a pool. The action before you, the alternative is number 3, so that cost is correct. I believe what the sheriff is saying, again, it goes back to that pool concept. If there's a high-risk incident going on here, he may have a deputy here instead of one of the blue coats for that event, and it provides the flexibility he needs here. But the action before you is the approval of 2 blue coats.
Okay.
Let me make this suggestion, and again, my focus is on alternative 3. I don't have any problem at all with the renovations to certain offices, but approving the blue coat operation on until the end of the year with a 6-month evaluation from this point, and maybe that will help us answer some of the questions, but kind of use it as a pilot between now and the end of the year, with additional decisions in 6 months. Anyway, Mr. Myers.
Thank you, Chair. So I want to make sure that I'm understanding this correctly. Again, the structural improvements are $147,000.
No.
80.
87.
Yeah.
87 and change.
Okay, I'm seeing construct secure lobby, 50, construct secure lobby legal offices, 37, and implement security improvements at east entry at 60. That's 147. And in the briefing sheet, it says security improvements to the Johnson County Administration Building at a cost of $147,943.
The structural improvements would be $87,943. That leaves out the $60,000 that you would need to redo the east entrance, because if we're not doing the 6 deputies, we won't need the improvements.
Okay, so that would be the metal detecting.
Right.
And that. And so, and again, I just want to make sure I'm clear. As you can see, I'm having difficulty on agreeing to any type of motion today on personnel other than making sure that these security improvements take place. But if we have that metal detector in place, and we're talking about from the time the building opens until it closes, and during those nighttime meetings or whatever, I'm having a hard time picturing in my mind how we utilize that staff and be able to do any type of sharing if that was required, because it's going to take, how many staff members does it take to man the metal detecting? 3. And so.
I think with the metal detector, we're talking about 6.
Yes. Yeah,
Right,
thank you. Just to
but
clarify.
I mean manning at a time.
Yeah, but option 3, again, where we're headed to here, does not include the metal detector.
Right.
Okay, so there is no cost, no metal detector at this time with this action, with item 3.
Right.
Okay.
But I still wanted to understand how we were going to utilize 3 officers at the metal detector, and then another 3 that I'm assuming are going to come after their shift is over. And so how would any type of sharing be able to be taken place other than an emergency situation where we need to have staffing here, somebody, an additional officer, 1 officer, blue coat or whoever it is, going over to the courthouse?
Okay, so I was conferring with the sheriff, of course, heard the chairman's suggestion there about really through the end of the year pilot to evaluate this. Sheriff and I were talking, I think that's something that we could look at and maybe couple that with Commissioner Hanslick's request for, really let's sit down and see the overall security staffing plan and make some long-term evaluation about needs once we have that information in front of us.
Mr. Ashcraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sheriff, Mr. Thompson, thank you. The discussion has been good. We're getting pretty granular, which is fine because it's a sensitive issue, and part of my sensitivity is that this is also a public discussion. So I appreciate the county manager's good counsel. But just a clarification: is the ultimate goal to have 24/7 security in this building and have all employees at all times go through the metal detector to make sure we limit or control the use or the availability of weapons? Is that because, all due respect to my learned colleague, this building is staffed almost 24 hours a day. The IT folks are in here, and I come in on weekends, and Mr. Thompson, I think, lives in his office, but that's another issue. But is that the goal or the expectation?
I think eventually it would have to be that way. We would have to ease into that. It's like the courthouse. Once you provide security for that, we know that building is secure. We know. We know for a fact there's not a gun in there.
How close does the 6, the whole package in this briefing sheet, how close does that get to the 24/7 expectation?
Pretty close, because we can still, I mean, our officers check this building, and they walk around the entire campus and do checks hourly, I think. Corey, is that correct? Twice a shift. Twice a shift to do the jail and the outside, and they're looking for packages and everything else. So it would assist us to increase that pool, and I think we would have enough to be able to do that.
Other questions, Ms. Fast?
Yeah, I just want to get there's different funding alternatives in here. It's just not clear which one we're talking about. So 3, provide 2 civilian blue coat positions and structural security at 186. So of that 186, what is the blue coat and what is the structural improvement?
Let me get you the money guy, Commissioner. Tom Dugan again. The blue coats would be around 85,000, and the structural improvements would be 87, 88.
So the 85,000 is what we're committing now to a year
yearly basis?
That would be prorated. So if you look at the annual cost for 2 blue coats,
Okay,
it would
what's
be
it-
about $177,000.
I was wondering with benefits, it's like, that's not very much. Okay, so the annual cost would be 176 for the
Right.
2 blue coats.
Yes. One thing I would point out as
And then
well.
the second part of that would be the renovations,
Yes,
not
the 80.
not the magnetometers.
Correct.
Right, right, okay. All right.
One other thing I would point out, 'cause there were some questions about, why did we have 2 selected for the right number? When we put that together, what we were trying to do was make sure that we had a presence in this building during all of the time periods where the building was open for regular business. So you'd always have 1 to 2. You wouldn't have no deputies in the building during regular work hours.
All right, Ms. Allenbrand, you had a motion. Let's get something on the floor so we have
Yes,
some
Mr. Chair, I do have a motion, but I also would like to ask a couple of things. I like the 6 months review because we've got old settlers coming up. We've got lots of things that are going to be happening on the square, which is going to have a lot of movement. And then also, Mr. Thompson, is the staff comfortable with this? Your
Yeah,
manager?
yes, we are.
Okay. So, Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion.
the motion. Would you say it, please?
Yes. I move to approve to provide 2 civilian blue coat positions and make structural security improvements at a cost of $186,894 in 2022 with a 6 months review.
Let's be specific with a 6-month review of the blue coats. The renovations will be in place, I assume.
Okay,
Is that right?
that would be correct.
Okay.
Okay.
Do I hear a second?
I second that.
Ms. O'Hara has the second. Any questions about the motion? A discussion thereof. County Manager.
May I make add a question? I heard Maury say that he and Sheriff were recommending through the end of the year. One thing to consider is it does take some time to hire staff. So if you want a 6 months review, you want to build in some time. So just a
Well, we got
question.
9 months left in this year, so, you can take 6 months out of that on any time period, I guess.
So should I make it 9 months?
That would be my recommendation. I'm looking to Maury and Sheriff
I'd
if
be
they're
glad
good
to
with
make
9
a-
months.
Amendment.
Would you make an amendment?
To amend the motion to say through the end of 2022.
Okay,
The
that's
review
fine.
at the end of 2022.
Well, I would think you would want to review it before the end of '22 to make a decision about going forward for the budget purposes. But anyway, okay. All right, would the maker of the motion and the second agree to that?
Mr. Chairman, I just want to be clear. The blue coats, do we think they would be able to be hired for a shorter period of time? I don't know how we would hire them. Would it be month to month? Would it be a 9-month contract? Is it going to be, how's it going to be presented to them? That's something that's very unusual for us to get into.
Blue coats are unique. We've got guys waiting, biting at the bit to come in, looking for those jobs. So it's not going to be hard to get them in. But we got about a 4-week training lag to get them in. But we haven't laid anybody off since 1863. And I'm not fat, and I can use those positions, guys.
Yeah.
Believe me. So I really don't want to start that tradition. In fact, I really don't. So
right.
we'll do whatever you guys think is right.
Okay. I want to make sure we're clear on the motion. The maker of the motion, have you incorporated the 9-month period rather than 6-month review?
Commissioner Hanslick made an amendment, so it went to the end of the year.
Okay?
Correct?
I'll accept you including that in the motion if you like.
Mr. Chairman, I'm, just for clarification, my understanding is the maker of the motion was Commissioner Allenbrand. And was there a second?
There was a second to the motion.
Okay,
I'm asking.
okay.
I'm
So
asking
is-
the maker and the seconder of the motion if they would agree to include that instead of the 6 months, the 9 months. I don't want to prolong this. If we need to have an amendment, make your amendment, Ms. Hanslick.
Well, does the second agree? I didn't hear. She agrees.
Yes, I agreed to extending that to the end of the year.
Okay.
Both the maker and the seconder agree to the 9
So
months.
it's a friendly
right?
amendment,
So-
and then,
No need for an amendment. Other discussion?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I understand the dynamic, and I appreciate Mr. Thompson and the sheriff bringing this forward. And I can be supportive of the construction of the lobbies. That makes a lot of sense. I would like to ask, though, that the motion be divided, because I'm still not convinced that hiring full-time employees is the only best option as we try to explore this. I think the identifying contract services that might be able to come in and fill whatever gaps or needs we have, especially if it's just a service limited to, as I understand, the blue coats providing versus the magnetometer full 24/7 approach or near 24/7 approach. So my motion would be to divide the general motion on the table.
Well, if there's no opposition to that, we will go ahead and divide the motion in that regard. Okay? So the first,
Second.
pardon?
See if there's a second to divide.
I would second that.
Okay.
All right. The motion is made to divide the motion. Second has been made. Clerk, call the roll.
This roll is for,
The divided motion.
Divide the motion
okay.
The 87
between the renovations and the two blue coats.
the 8793 or 87,943.
Yeah.
Thank you. Commissioner
call.
Fast.
Aye.
Commissioner Myers.
Myers, aye.
Commissioner O'Hara.
Yes.
Commissioner Hanslick.
Hanslick, aye.
Commissioner Ashcraft.
Yes.
Commissioner Allenbrand.
And I want to make sure that I'm understanding the vote. So this is the, to divide the two?
This is divide your motion into two parts. One part would be the renovations. The other part would be the blue coats for 9 months.
No.
All right?
And Chairman Eilert.
I vote aye. So there I have 6 votes in favor, 1 opposed. Motion carried. So the first item on the divided motion will be the, to approve the facility renovations as recommended. Ms. Hanslick?
Mr. Chair, could we put the numbers with each of those motions? I know the structural security improvements
That's what I was-
are at a cost of $87,943, but I don't know what we're voting on in terms of the cost of the 2 civilian blue coat positions through the end of this year.
Well, that's been explained before, but would you explain it again, please?
Yes, there is actually another item I should add in. The cost for the remaining year for the blue coats, if you include all of their equipment and outfitting them out, would be $91,779
Thank
for
you.
the remainder of 2022.
And the renovations?
The renovations would be,
87,943.
According to the briefing sheet, yeah.
47.
this would be,
Yeah, according to the briefing sheet, it's 87,000.
yes, it's that number, I'm sorry.
And that 87,000 does not include any magnetometer work.
Correct.
Correct. The 87,943 would be just the renovations of the 2 office spaces.
Very good.
2 lobby areas.
All right.
Chairman, I'm wondering, Maury, if instead of the exact, if we should do up to, give you a little flexibility, up to 90, you know what I mean? It's like when you do these exact amounts, if you're 1 cent over, you got to come back.
Be the discretion of the board. Like to do that.
Yeah. Okay, all right. First motion to vote on is the renovation. That motion is before us.
Mr. Chairman, just a clarification, another point. So there is not an amendment to the motion that's on the floor right now to add the dollar amounts up to?
That is correct.
Okay.
All right. Clerk, please call the roll.
And this is for the structure
This is for,
improvements.
yes, the construction.
Okay. Commissioner Fast.
Aye.
Commissioner Myers.
Myers, aye.
Commissioner O'Hara.
Yes.
Commissioner Hanslick.
Hanslick, aye.
Commissioner Ashcraft.
Yes.
Commissioner Allenbrand.
Allenbrand, aye.
And Chairman Eilert.
Eilert, aye. I have 7 votes in favor. That portion of the motion carried. The second part of that motion is to hire 2 blue coats at the amount of money reported and designated. Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Fast.
Aye.
Commissioner Myers.
Myers, no.
Commissioner O'Hara.
Yes.
Commissioner Hanslick.
Hanslick, aye.
Commissioner Ashcraft.
No.
Commissioner Allenbrand.
Allenbrand, aye.
And Chairman Eilert.
Eilert, aye. I have 5 votes in favor, 2 votes opposed, motion carried. All right, thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Clerk will read next item.
Item number 5, request for proposal RFP 2018-077. Consider authorizing an increase in contract authority with Waste Management in the amount of $175,000 for countywide waste collection, disposal, and recycling services for a 1-year term with 2 additional 1-year renewals remaining.
Ms. Lyons.
Good morning, Chairman Eilert and Commissioners. Robin Lyons, Purchasing Manager. The item before you was reviewed last week, and background information was provided. A request was made for information regarding a cost-benefit analysis in accepting the increase versus initiating a new solicitation. Evaluation was done of the 2018 solicitation. The RFP was broken down and evaluated in 3 zones: North, South, and Olathe. 4 responsive proposals were received. We received responses from City of Olathe, Republic Services, WCA of Missouri, and Waste Management. Each zone was evaluated separately to determine if 1 or more providers should be awarded. Cost was provided by Waste Management. They were the lowest cost provider for all 3 zones in that proposal. Republic Services and Waste Management were the only providers that provided cost for all 3 of the zones. And cost provided by Waste Management was 55 to 125% lower than the next lowest cost provider, depending on zone. So in looking at that evaluation, the risk of resoliciting for this, including the increase, could far exceed the 24% that Waste Management is looking at or asking. With that, I stand for questions.
Questions? Mr. Ashcraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Lyons, thank you for that summary. I did not glean that, the extent of that analysis in the briefing sheet. And since we did not have an opportunity to talk between now and then, I think you hit the high points, and I particularly appreciate you outlining the cost comparison by zones. That was one question that I was wondering about, since we are spread out. And some service providers seem to localize in certain areas, and I didn't know if they'd be more or less competitive. So because of your oral presentation, I am comfortable with what you're proposing and will support it.
Any other questions? All right, is there anyone present who wishes to speak to this item? If not, it's back before the commission. A motion is in order. Ms. Hanslick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move to authorize an increase in contract authority with Waste Management in the amount of $175,000 for countywide waste collection, disposal, and recycling services for a 1-year term with 2 additional 1-year renewals remaining per RFP 2018-077.
Do I hear a second?
Allenbrand, second.
Hanslick made the motion. Allenbrand seconded the motion to authorize the increase in the contract with Waste Management as recommended. Any further questions or discussion? Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Fast.
Aye.
Commissioner Myers.
Myers, aye.
Commissioner O'Hara.
Yes.
Commissioner Hanslick.
Hanslick, aye.
Commissioner Ashcraft.
Yes.
Commissioner Allenbrand.
Allenbrand, aye.
And Chairman Eilert.
Eilert, aye. I have 7 votes in favor. Motion carried. Next item.
Item number 6. This is the item added to the agenda. Consider ratifying the appointment of Jim Tyrone's chairman's appointment to the Civil Service Board through February 5th, 2024.
Questions? Ms. Allenbrand?
Mr. Chair, I have a motion when you're ready.
All right, go right ahead.
I move to ratify the appointment of Jim Tyrone's chairman's appointment to the Civic Service Board through February 5th, 2024.
Do I hear a second?
Hanslick, second.
Motion has been made and seconded to approve the appointment to the Civil Service Commission as presented. Any further questions? Mr. Ashcraft?
Just to clarify, I believe he pronounces his last name Tyronis.
Tyronis.
yes.
I apologize.
That is correct. Any other questions? All right, clerk, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Fast.
Aye.
Commissioner Myers.
Myers, aye.
Commissioner O'Hara.
Yes.
Commissioner Hanslick.
Hanslick, aye.
Commissioner Ashcraft.
Yes.
Commissioner Allenbrand.
Allenbrand, aye.
And Chairman Eilert.
Eilert, aye. Motion carried. I have 7 votes in favor. Any other items?
No, sir.
All right, turning to reports and communications, Ms. Postoke Ferguson.
Chairman and Commissioners, good morning. I have a program spotlight this morning for Robert Sullivan, Director of Corrections, and he will be talking about Positive Behavior Support Program. He has a presentation about 5 minutes, but it's a very positive thing that we're doing, and I want you to hear from Robert. So, Robert?
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Robert Sullivan. I'm the Director of our Department of Corrections. And like Penny said, today I'm going to spotlight one of our programs called Positive Behavior Supports. We refer to that as PBS. And over the next few minutes, I'm going to cover why we adopted PBS as a behavior modification system in our facilities. And I also wanted to highlight the fact that while today I'm going to talk about how we implemented this in our detention center and our therapeutic community, it's also used by our mental health center and our Johnson County Developmental Supports. So it truly is a county-wide positive behavior support program. Before I do that, just very quickly, I'm going to hit a little bit about what our department does. So here you'll see that our department consists of our Juvenile Services Center, our Adult Residential Center, Field Services, and our Administration and Support Services Division. And rather than go over each and every one of these different program components, probably the best way to summarize what our department does for the community is we develop innovative solutions to reoccurring social problems by creating pathways to success for the justice involved without jeopardizing the safety and property of our Johnson County residents. We accomplish this in several ways, but primarily we accomplish this through close collaboration with our community and organizational partners. I suspect one of the reasons Penny asked me to spotlight PBS today is because she had an opportunity to see it in action. About 2.5 years ago, Penny helped the kids in detention with a service project to create care kits for Olathe Police Department. While doing so, Penny observed one of our staff conducting what we call a teach and tap on a tablet with one of the youths, and Penny inquired about it. So our staff let Penny know that she had just observed them recognizing a youth's positive behavior, or as you'll learn in a minute or two, one of our facility's universal expectations. So what is PBS? PBS is a positive or is a strength-based, person-centered approach for improving a person's quality of life in one of our facilities. It incorporates tools and strategies that align with behavioral and biomedical evidence-based practices. When used correctly, PBS helps officers address the root causes of problem behavior by teaching social and communication skills to replace challenging behavior. Our officers are trained to intervene to change the situations and settings that trigger problem behavior as soon as it occurs. The first thing we try to do is understand the reason behind the behavior and the function. So essentially, what is a person trying to communicate to us? Inappropriate behaviors are difficult to change because they're functional. They serve a purpose. It's not uncommon for people entering a corrections environment to be lonely, terrified, or completely overwhelmed. Sometimes those feelings manifest themselves in the form of challenging behaviors. Once we've determined the meaning behind a person's behavior, we look at the environment to make sure it's suited to them having the best quality of life in a correction setting. We then teach new skills to replace that challenging behavior with a new way of coping. PBS requires a different mindset. All staff working with individuals in our facilities have to change their own behavior to be effective. We must focus on creating a positive environment for learning, using a team-based approach, and not relying solely on punitive measures. PBS uses a multi-tiered approach. Every day in work, school, home, and community settings, we all receive expectations and general support as we go about our lives, and it's no different in a facility setting. So in this multi-tiered approach, in Tier 1, which represents about 85% of our population, our universal supports ensure we provide consistent, clear expectations and focus on positive behaviors and skills needed to be successful. Tier 2 represents about 10 to 15% of our population, and we refer to it as targeted support. We recognize some people may need more help due to an acute or chronic physical, mental, or emotional health condition. Targeted supports provide additional assistance with developing structure, new skills, and opportunities to connect with other professionals. Employing targeted supports could prevent the need for more intensive interventions. And then finally, Tier 3 is what we refer to as individualized support. And we'll have a few individuals that require this level of support every now and then, and that might involve specialized assessments, comprehensive interventions, or connections to effective care upon their release from one of our facilities. Goals. Goals are prominently displayed in key locations throughout all of our facilities. Why are goals important? Goals provide the foundation for PBS and sets the guidelines for universal expectations. Universal expectations apply to all of us, not just the folks we supervise. When universal expectations are used across all parts of the facility, it's going to give us the opportunity to be consistent, allows us to use a common language so that we can better support those that we're supervising. So what is the aim? What is it that we aim to accomplish by using positive behavior supports? With our detention center population, we want to decrease the length of time youths are in locked isolation, decrease the number of behavior reports, and decrease the use of force incidents, whether that's inmate on inmate or inmate on staff. While I can share data related to behavior reports, and I will in the next slide, I don't yet have data for locked isolation and use of force incidents. We recently implemented performance-based standards, which require us to redefine locked isolation and use of force, meaning the baseline data that we have, and we do have data on that, it's just not relevant to positive behavior supports. So just as a quick aside, performance-based standards, it's a data-driven continuous improvement process for juvenile justice facilities to improve conditions and the quality of life. It provides research-based performance measures and focuses on making facilities safer, monitoring program effectiveness, and achieving positive outcomes. I'd be happy to discuss performance-based standards further at a future Spotlight presentation to the board, but I'm going to get back to PBS. So PBS was implemented in September 2017. Since then, we have continued to see incremental decreases in the number of what we refer to as high-level behavior reports. These behaviors include disruptive behavior, not attending school or mandatory programming, failing to lock down, battery, physical threats, lewd acts, misusing medication, or attempting to escape. It's important to note that these outcomes you see on this slide cannot be solely attributed to PBS. We also use cognitive behavior programming, the before-mentioned performance-based standards, incentives, honor status, in addition to traditional behavior modification strategies commonly used in correctional settings already. So, a big part of our job still involves correcting for inappropriate behavior. But discipline alone can't make up the bulk of the efforts to encourage people to behave better. Often disciplinary measures are just a temporary fix. We're looking for a long-term fix. Temporary fixes don't address why behavior is happening, and sometimes it can even make it worse. PBS forces us to look at behavior as observable. My officers can't see thoughts, they can't see feelings, but they can observe behavior. By observing this behavior, PBS allows our officers to match the right strategies to the quality of life that that person chooses to pursue. And you can't do that without us understanding why the behavior is occurring and matching responses to that person's current circumstances. And finally, what's next? We will continue working on becoming more proficient and ensuring these skills don't deteriorate over time. For now, both the Juvenile Detention Center and Therapeutic Community have staff designated as PBS advocates. Those are staff that have demonstrated being, a high level of proficiency at employing these skills, and we recruit them as advocates to be mentors for our other staff. During my presentation, I referenced improving an inmate's quality of life. I'd like to finish with a comment Director Ellen Hawks made recently. When done correctly, using programs like PBS in a correctional setting improves not only the inmate's quality of life, but also improves our staff's quality of life in what can sometimes be a very stressful work environment. So with that, that concludes my presentation on our Spotlight on PBS. I am joined today by 3 individuals that have far more expertise in PBS than I do in case you have questions. Joined today by our Director of the Juvenile Services Center, Ellen Hawks, Pbs Coordinator Chris Brown, and our former shift supervisor and current business intelligence analyst, Jody Kelly. And with that, I'll stand for questions.
Questions, Mr. Sullivan, Ms. Hanslick.
Thank you for the presentation. I really, really appreciate it. Can you just briefly talk about the intersection of PBS with trauma-informed care?
Chris, do you want to take that? Come on up.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Chris Brown. I am the PBS Coordinator. As far as being in conjunction with trauma-informed care, Robert mentioned looking at the function of the behavior, and that comes down to what we're seeing may not be what's going on underneath. So we're going in and asking a lot of questions. We have, if they reach the individual level, we can do, or I, as a tertiary, I can go in and work with them, and we do a functional behavioral assessment. Asking a lot of questions of them. Depending upon their cognitive level, we also involve their family, their support, and a lot of times I turn to the staff at the facilities because they know what's going on.
Oh, I appreciate that.
Thank you. Other questions? Mr. Ashcraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Sullivan, I know you were talking to me, and I appreciate that. I do look forward to a further discussion on your success standards and your outcome impacts that you're anticipating, but I appreciate the presentation.
Okay. Other questions? Ms. O'Hara.
Yes, I know that we also, and it's not connected with this program, I don't believe, but we have mentorship programs within our juvenile facilities.
Yes.
And how many people do we have that is volunteering to interface with these youth?
So what I was advised just as recently as yesterday is that we have approaching 200 volunteers and or mentors that work directly with the Department of Corrections.
And has that's been in place since about 2017? Did you?
No, it's been in place for quite a while.
Okay.
It predates me. And so, yes, as far as mentoring and volunteers, that's been around for quite some time. We have a very robust program.
And we've found a lot of success within that mentorship.
Yes, COVID's impacted that greatly, as you can imagine. But we are looking forward, once we get on the other side of COVID, of getting that started again.
Are you anticipating that to be starting face-to-face in the next couple of months?
I'm going to be referring to my facility directors because this is what impacts them the most. And so I'll be meeting with them as far as kind of what they are comfortable with as a timeline to get those face-to-faces started again.
Okay, if you could let me know what that timeline is, I'd appreciate it. Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Ms. Allen-Brand.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to thank you. This program is outstanding, and I really appreciate your staff, and I appreciate you sharing. Thank you.
Mr. Sullivan, good job. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Robert, and team that's here. Watching this in action, I saw in a classroom setting where they were doing a project, I saw staff following around the youth with their iPads and then occasionally pulling them aside. And I thought, well, it looks like when they pulled them aside, it wasn't confrontational, so I was curious. And the staff told me they were catching them doing good. And they were concentrating on giving that instant feedback. So it was amazing to watch the body language when one of the youth was caught doing good. So it was neat to observe. So thank you very much. Okay, next item. As you all are aware, we have a public hearing on Monday, April 4th regarding solar amendments recommended by the Planning Commission. So this morning we wanted to highlight a website for information that's out there for the public and for you to refer to, as well as talk a few minutes about process, what to expect. And so Karen Miller with the Planning Department is here to highlight the web page for a few minutes, and then Peg Trent can highlight the process a bit more. So Karen?
Thank you. Karen Miller with the Planning Department. And
Karen, could you get closer to the microphone, please?
if only I could grow a little bit
Thank
more.
you.
Thank you. Karen Miller with the Planning Department. And so, as Penny mentioned, Monday we'll be getting into content about solar facilities, but we thought we would take a little bit of time to let you know how we're keeping the public informed. And most of our planning items at Planning Commission, we have 0 to 3 people attending. And we get at most maybe 2 or 3 comments on any one thing that we're doing. Well, with solar, this has taken about a year. The public involvement has grown and grown and grown. And so at some point, planning needed some help and support. And boy, we got it. And we're really excited about it. And so we thought we would share this with you. So this is the homepage of Johnson County government. And you'll notice the big button that takes you directly to information on the solar facilities projects. And you click on it and you go. And so right now, kind of the important thing that's going on is the public hearing on Monday. So Linda and I, who have been through more than a few public hearings, knew that we needed all of that information right here immediately available at the top of the page. I'll zoom back in, but just so you see, right in this blue is immediately everything that you need regarding the public hearing. And so it tells you where to go physically. It tells you, the next paragraph tells you that you can watch it live through our portal or YouTube, that you can comment and participate. You can comment virtually or in person. It tells you that you should pre-register if you want to participate, and that you can just come to the meeting and participate. It gives you a little bit more information. It tells you when you can pre-register, when that cutoff is, and I'll just mention the pre-registration for Zoom and for in person is open until Monday, April 4th at 9 a.m. We've gotten a few comments about that. It tells you that if you do pre-register for the Zoom, you'll get an email notice on exactly what to do. And then we have three big buttons to pre-register for the public hearing, live, in person, or Zoom, and then how to submit written comments directly to the Board of County Commissioners. We have a special page for this, for the solar project, and then just some additional information regarding the public hearing. And then, so that is all the information you need right now to participate at the very top. And then moving on, we have a lot of good background information, and a lot of this information was compiled by the PIO's office, Jody, and then also Todd Dotteridge is here. Todd, if you could, Tim, I'm sorry, Tim, I knew that. Yeah. Tim has helped put all this content on the page in a very digestible manner, but Jody did a great job of After the Cow, taking all of that information that we gave you over the course of an hour or two and making it very understandable. So kind of that big picture look, considering the solar scale facilities, and then she kind of goes into the issue, kind of what the big picture problems that we're looking at, kind of gives a diagram of kind of the whole process, and then kind of points out that the Planning Commission recommends that the Board of County Commissioners makes the final action, and that the public hearing is coming up on Monday. And then just a brief sketch of kind of those big picture matrix that we're all talking about, like term and size of the project, that type of thing. And then just the next step, again, reiterating that the public hearing. And then this is the other really exciting part. We are getting a lot of comments, and so we were doing a good job of keeping it all labeled and uploaded in the Planning Commission side, but when the Board of County Commissioners came into play, we just had a whole nother level of number of comments. So this is all of the information submitted to both Planning and Board of County Commissioners all together tomorrow by 1 o'clock. Planning will upload everything, all of the items, the briefing sheet and supplementary information into OnBase by 1 o'clock tomorrow. And we'll make sure that all of that information is available attached to the public hearing. And then just for example, in February, we had the Committee of the Whole. It has all of that information presented during the Committee of the Whole available. And then, for instance, the public hearing was in November. All of the public comments submitted during the public hearing. And so each month, we have all of those comments submitted to us, either to the Board of County Commissioners or to Planning. So with that, I'll just wrap it up, but I just thought I would share that.
All right, very good. Lots of information to share. Good work.
Thank you.
Ms. Trent, you had a comment?
Thank you, Commissioners. Good morning. Peg Trent, Chief Counsel. To add on to what has already been shared with you from Karen, the county manager asked that I include it in the manager's report for your review and the public to see the process that would be outlined by the commissioners on April 4th for that special meeting. As you can see from the memo, that it indicates that at your special meeting on April 4th, there will be a public hearing where comments will be public hearing where people will have an opportunity to make comments concerning 2 items that will be before you for consideration. Specifically, that item would be related to amendments to the comprehensive plan itself, as well as the zoning and subdivision regulations, which relate to the regulation of solar facilities and within the unincorporated area, plus the adoption and incorporation by reference of 2 safety standards related to battery energy storage facilities that are associated with those solar facilities. Of noteworthy is that at the conclusion of the public hearing and hearing the public comments, the board will have an opportunity then to take action at the special meeting on those amendments that are before you. Specifically, you have the authority of 2 options that could occur as outlined in the memo, that you can either approve the comprehensive plan, the amendments to the comprehensive plan, and those accompanying proposed zoning regulations related to the solar facilities, which do include the battery storage standards as recommended by the Planning Commission, or 2, you remand it back to the Planning Commission with your recommendation for amendments to such items. That is by a majority vote of the board. In addition, if you opt to remain it back to the Planning Commission, the board will need to provide direction to the Planning Commission as to what your recommended revisions would be. And at that point, to assist the Planning Commission, a verbatim transcript will be made of that proceeding, entire proceeding, including the public hearing, as well as your discussion on that action item. So that will, the recommendation would be that the board will need an additional 30 days than what would be required under the statute. So you would have to include in your motion, which thankfully through planning staff and your briefing sheet, they will have laid this all out, what I'm discussing in the options. But you will have an ability to set a date that would be into the future for the Planning Commission, so we have the verbatim transcript available as well. And they will have a certain period of time you'll set in order for the Planning Commission to review your suggested recommendations. So the way the process will more than likely occur is there will be a motion in your briefing sheet, and that motion will outline what your recommendations would be. And I think we're discussing right now how we would put together kind of a template motion so that you can insert what you would prefer to see in recommendations if it gets sufficient votes of a majority of the board. At that point, let's say then you opt for the remand, it goes back to the Planning Commission with your recommendations that you've motioned along with the verbatim transcript. At that point, the Planning Commission has those dates that they have to comply with reviewing what you requested. The Planning Commission could send it back with recommendations, revisions, and at that point, you will have an opportunity to review those recommendations. If you don't agree with it, then you're free to make motions to revise those regulations at that point. If the board, the Planning Commission, fails to take action within the time period that you prescribe in your motion, at that point, it comes back like we're at the original, and you would just move forward with making your motions and whatever you would like to have of opportunity. Keep in mind, through all this process, whether it goes back and forth, there will be opportunities for public comment from the public. And with that, I just a friendly reminder, that all of your emails and all of your communications, ex parte communications, are being gathered and included in the record which Karen outlined to you as part of the comments. And with that, I stand for any questions like Karen on this.
All right, thank you very much. Ms. O'Hara, you have a question?
Yes. So I want to thank legal staff for updating me on my many, many questions on this process, because I was quite confused, because at first I was told that the public hearing was only going to be on the battery energy storage facility, because we'd already had the public hearing on the solar farms, the fields. And now I understand that we're actually going to be, we already had a public hearing at the Planning Commission. And so at the beginning of this process, it was understood that we were accepting public comments on the solar farm, but that the public hearing actually was on the battery energy storage facility. But now I understand that the public hearing is actually going to be on 3 issues. Is that correct? The adoption of the standards, the battery energy storage facilities, and the solar farm.
Right.
Commissioner O'Hara, that is correct.
Okay, and that we will not be able to make changes and adopt anything at that public hearing, that our decision will be either accept what the Planning Commission has in front of us or remand everything back to the Planning Commission. Is that correct?
Yep. That's our normal process of...
Is that's correct? I mean, that would be on the adoption of the standards, the battery energy facility, storage facilities requirements from the Planning Commission and the solar farm. So we'd have
And the comprehensive plan.
And the comprehensive plan, right. Okay, just wanted to make sure that I had this clear.
Yes, you accurately restated it in your terms.
Other
Thank you.
question? Ms. Allenbrand?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for putting this website together, and I'm sure it took a team, it always does, to
It very much
get
did.
anything done. But, so have you also reached out to all the people by email, letting them know that this websites in place, or how do they know that this is in place?
We've mentioned this at our meetings. We've let them know at our meetings, and it's on the very first web page of the county, the very first page, and these people are kind of talking amongst themselves, so the word is spread pretty well about it too.
Mr. Ashcraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Process question. I was wondering, in terms of the participation protocols at the meeting on Monday, will you follow, or do you hope to follow the same format that you usually do with commission meetings, with virtual comments? I'm assuming they can be made.
Well,
have you finalized?
All that depends upon the number of virtual comments. Previously, we've allowed 30 minutes for virtual, then 30 for in-person, and, using that. And so it depends entirely upon the number of virtual comments that we have. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you.
Ms. O'Hara.
Just one other quick question. How many people have we had sign up to make comments?
Excuse me, if I could answer that. I've just got a report a few minutes ago, and at this time, we have a total of 27 at this time. We have 18 in person and 9 virtually. But of course, we have this open, pre-registration open till 9 a.m. on Monday, 4/4. And then we will also be opening up, sign up in person to speak in person at 1 p.m. at Embassy Suites in Olathe.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, thank you. Next item.
Okay. Thank you to planning staff, to communications team, to IT, and all those that helped get this together for the information. So hopefully, commissioners, you feel as proud as I do that they did it quickly. And, our focus is getting information out to the public, as is yours as well. The next item is, you'll see a picture here in a minute. There it goes. Sharice Davids, Representative Sharice Davids, was in Johnson County last Thursday afternoon visiting MedAct personnel who were involved with the care during the Olathe East school shooting. As you will recall, MedAct was one of several agencies who responded to the incident. Representative Davids stopped by Olathe Station 1151, located on Flaming Road. She met with MedAct crew members, chief-level officers, peer support, and tactical medics who were all on scene for the incident.
Okay.
Once again, I want to thank MedAct, our mental health center, the sheriff's office, and all the local law enforcement and first responders who responded to the shooting at Olathe East High School. Our thoughts continue to be with the school students, staff, and families.
Thank you.
And the last item is the City of Shawnee notified the board regarding a public hearing that was held Monday, March 28th. The purpose of the public hearing was to consider the issuance of $27 million in industrial revenue bonds and 100% 10-year property tax abatement. The project is for 257,615 square foot industrial warehouse facility located at the southwest corner of 43rd Street and Clare Road. The project application is BK Properties LLC. The notice of public hearing, resolution, and cost-benefit report shows a cost-benefit ratio of 1.15 for Johnson County were attached to the manager's memo. And with that, Chairman, that concludes my report.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next item, Mr. Thompson.
Good morning again, Chairman and Commissioners. Maury Thompson, Deputy County Manager, with the legislative update. A few items of note from your report this week. Bottom of page 1 is noted Senate Bill 489, health-related measure, removing certain regulatory authority concerning infectious or contagious diseases from the Secretary of the Department of Health and Environment. Our public health staff have been monitoring that very closely. As we're all well aware, those issues arose due to the pandemic. Some concern, though, that now legislative response may be, in fact, getting too broad, impacting ability to address appropriately other infectious and contagious disease. So we're monitoring that one closely. Secondly, on page 2, I would note House Substitute for Senate Bill 19, yes, implementing the 988 suicide prevention line. Again, something very important to us here in Johnson County and statewide that unfortunately has run into some difficulties on the Senate side. I don't believe there was ever a hearing on the Senate side. Now some reluctance there appears to move that bill forward. So we are watching that one anxiously too to see if that can get resolved. On page 4, under tax-related measures, just a couple of notes there. I know this body has been particularly interested in housing-related bills and those related to taxing. As anticipated, it appears that House and Senate have now bundled almost all, if not all, tax-related bills into one large agreement and are working through the details of that. Been trying to work through that this morning to see what is in and what is out, so we'll continue to work on that and monitor progress. Finally, a couple of good notes to end on a positive note. I reported last week good news for our Department of Corrections and Corrections statewide in terms of increased funding. That has remained as anticipated in the final budget bill, so good news there. Also would report that very positive outlook for funding for intellectual and developmental disability services contained in both House and Senate versions of the budget, so it looks like it is likely to survive the process. Those monies would be used for rate increases for home and community-based services. So some additional funding for a couple of our key responsibilities here in Johnson County for next year. With that, I'd be happy to stand for questions.
Questions? Mr. Ashcraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm curious, where are we on the food tax?
It is part of that bundling of all tax-related issues.
Yeah, I don't see the details, though. So is it total elimination, reduction, deferral?
Again, all
The
of
answer is, who knows?
yeah,
Yeah. There's still,
Much
all
more
the
succinct.
decisions are made in conference.
correct.
It's
All those
fluid.
versions are on the table. We'll see what they
All right.
will agree to.
Okay, thank you very much. Ms.
Thank you.
Johnson. Excuse me, Ms. Hanslick.
Oh, just one question about the Senate Bill 489. Do we, I'm not able to really get details about how that would impact, or if it would impact the authority of the Board of Public Health in any county. Can you illuminate me a little?
Probably not much. I've had one general conversation with public health staff, I believe, last week after our legislative call. How about if I send some summary about their concerns, and because I do have that from them,
Well, I
rather than me to
appreciate
try
that.
to stumble
Thank you,
through that.
Because I've been watching too. I saw that in Wyandotte County, they're seeing an outbreak of tuberculosis, and it'll be interesting to see how that is handled and what the impact of this bill could be on those kinds of situations.
Correct.
So thank you.
You're welcome.
Sarah, you have a question?
Yes. I had specifically asked our health department if they had testified on this bill, and I was assured that they had not testified on this bill. However, have we been communicating our concerns to specific people in Topeka rather than at a hearing? I'm hearing that the health department is concerned about this bill, and so I'm wondering how those concerns have been communicated to Topeka.
Yeah, I can't speak to how they've been communicated to Topeka. I don't know if they have had those conversations. I was referencing the concern expressed to me during internal legislative conversations.
Okay, because there is great division, I believe, on this board as far as their attitudes towards this type of legislation. So, anyway, thank you.
Understood.
Thank you. Nothing, Ms. Allenbrand.
Sorry, Mr. Chair. Mr. Thompson, do you have a Batmobile or something? I mean, you're doing all this, and I know you're going up to Topeka. I'm not sure how you do it, but everybody sitting here on this dais really appreciates everything you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Moving to commission comments. Ms. O'Hara.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have four items. And the first one is, could we please open the curtains out to the public area that I really like to be able to see out?
We always do when there's public out there.
Pardon?
When there's public present, they are opened.
Can't we just have them open on a regular basis?
Well, that's fine.
I guess
Yeah.
that's my request. Please consider that. I like being able to see out and possibly removing those barriers close to the windows. That's one comment.
Okay.
The second comment is that I noticed that we have 3 auditor positions open, and that on the openings, it's talking about performance audits, and I would just encourage us as a board to, since this is a huge percentage of our audit team, that we instruct our staff to reconfigure this to financial audits rather than performance audits. This is just a conversation that needs to be amongst the board members and possibly brought up as an agenda item. And then 3, I was very concerned about the issues with the microtransit. I think that I need to understand if this is an ongoing issue. My big concern is that I don't want the public to have these expectations of on-demand service and then have people stranded. So I just need to understand that a little bit better. And then the last issue is that I am concerned about our first budget hearing, as I've spoken before, being held as a retreat, and that we will not be videotaping that to be broadcast to the broader public. So that's it. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Myers.
No comments.
Ms. Hansley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a number of things I want to mention. First of all, thank you to the Mental Health Advisory Board for our joint meeting on Monday night. That was very helpful, and it was wonderful to see people in person and to be able to have those conversations and hear about the accomplishments and challenges in terms of mental health services. I'm not going to say too much about it, but also thank you, Chairman Eilert, for the wonderful State of the County address on Tuesday. Very much appreciate the report, and it was a great event. Then Tuesday evening, I know Commissioner Fast and I attended the Unity Seder at the Jewish Community Campus, which was a really fabulous event to focus on our commonalities and our desire for peace and understanding. Then also yesterday, I was in Manhattan to be part of a panel discussion with Dr. Areola for the Kansas Governor's Public Health Conference, and that was very well received. We talked a lot about the challenges during the pandemic and how we were able to work together. And then finally, I do want to make special note of the passing of a very important person in Johnson County, Doug Smith, and many of you may know his name as the namesake for the Middle Basin Wastewater Treatment Facility. He passed away last week, and he's actually a neighbor of mine. And so I wanted to make a special note of his passing. He had led Johnson County Wastewater for 25 years, from 1980 to 2005, and he oversaw a lot of growth and changes in that department during that time. He really helped set the foundation for the system that we have now. He also had served as Overland Park City Councilman for 8 years, from 1972 to 1980. He was a consultant with the KCATA, and he was also on the MARC board. And so my sympathies and appreciation go out to his wife, Elsie, and his children, Rebecca and Jason, and thank him and thank them for the contributions that he made to our current quality of life here in Johnson County. So thank you.
I would second that. I had the opportunity to work closely with Mr. Smith for 4 years, and so, yes, we'll miss him. Mr. Ashcraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, and Commissioner Hanslick, thank you for identifying, acknowledging Mr. Smith and the work he did. It was very appropriate. I wanted to elaborate a little bit on another comment that you made in regard to the chairman's State of the County address. Mr. Chairman, transitions are hard, but I wanted to express that your last State of the County, you did so with dignity and with pride, but you're not out of here yet, so I look forward to one more budget battle with you, and this year I'm going to win.
Well, I think perhaps there's a good chance we'll both win.
Very good. And I also want to welcome everybody back to the dais.
Yes.
I think this is the first time that the county counselor has actually been at the dais, so she gets to see the world we see.
Yeah.
She's been here, but not in the full setting like this.
Commissioner Allenbrand.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've got a few things. First of all, I attended the DeSoto Chamber Annual Dinner along with the chairman and his lovely wife, and Carol Lehman was recognized as retiring, but also her work with economic development. And there was a lot of talk and a lot of buzz, excited about the annexation of Sunflower and the way they're moving. I also helped volunteer for the Olathe School Foundation fundraising, and there's a lot of work that goes in from school board members, past alumni. I know Commissioner Myers is involved in that. And I know you heard this Monday night, I wasn't able to attend. My daughter's in the hospital, so I needed to be with her. But we did raise over $255,000 that goes directly for student mental health. And I'm very excited about that, and also with Tim Demise and his work with them. I, too, want to thank the chairman for an outstanding State of the County address. Just being in public and being there with all the elected officials and volunteers in chambers, I learned a lot just from attending that, and I appreciate all the work that you've done, and that was well done. I also attended, this is the Boys and Girls Club, and it's a new building that's on Harrison. I didn't even know it was there. It's behind the Grace Church, and it's called the Olathe Lift Zone. I attended that along, and the chairman was also invited, and it was in a partnership with Comcast. And the exciting thing about this is for kids, and there's a gym, there's all kinds of programming, but Comcast donated $25,000 to help with, and they are also doing all the Wi-Fi for this, for the Boys and Girls Club. And not only did they stop there, they're also matching dollar for dollar up to $50,000, but they also give all those students from kindergarten up a laptop, a Dell laptop. And the chairman and I, along with Leetta Filter from the Olathe City Council, and now I'm gonna, who was the other school board member there?
Rollins' daughter.
Yes, thank you.
McCune was there, wasn't he?
Brent was also, well, he's part of the.
He's part of the advisory board. So there was advisory boards, and the exciting thing was being able to see their faces. And one mom was in tears and said, now my son's gonna go to college with the computer. So we take a lot of things for granted. So that was exciting. I also sat on with the university, KU, on an elected official panel with Heather Gary. I know that Commissioner Fast did another day, but I was proud to be on there and talk about what it takes to be an elected official. I surprised them a little bit about, they were all excited. One official from Missouri had shared his excitement about, Facebook and social media, and I said, well, it does have a double-edged sword because it can be, and they actually were in shock. So anyway, so I did share that with them. I also want to thank Mayor Winters from Gardner and Mayor Roberts on the continued discussions of road issues in the 6th District and the joint effort that we're making working together. I've got two more things, sorry. Also, we yesterday had a joint meeting with the Johnson County Fair Board. Jeff Stewart has met a couple of times, and also Mayor Winters is involved in that. And just looking at what the future could hold, what their needs are. I also want to thank Scott Newfield for attending too. So, and then this is the last, I promise. Again, Monday, April 6th at 9:00 a.m., we will be having the uncoupling along with the ribbon cutting at Fire Station 1 that's in Edgerton. I think they actually call it 5, but that will be at 9:00 a.m. Put it on your calendars, and Governor Kelly will be attending that. She just made that commitment. And the chair, I put you down to also say a few words, so I'll get that on your calendar.
What?
I'm sorry, what?
It's April the 6th, and I
What
think that's on
event
this is the uncoupling, and I've learned this.
Oh,
So
the governor's going to
basically,
be at that?
She made the,
It's an election year, if you
I invite her to my birthday party too. No.
Commissioner Fast, you have a comment?
Everybody's, one of the things that wasn't mentioned is I gave a county update at the city of Leewood council meeting. There was some concerns voiced at that by counselors about the tomahawk, and Susan Pedcaric has been getting right on it. I really appreciate that. And the Jewish Community Center Unity Seder event to celebrate Passover was just incredible, inspiring. Community leaders from the greater Kansas City Metro was there, and I haven't experienced a Seder Passover before, so I really enjoyed that. And thank you to Tim and his crew for the Mental Health Joint Board. I thought that was a really good presentation.
Okay, thank you very much. This afternoon at 5 p.m., there will be a retirement celebration for Fire Chief Francis. That will take place at the Overland Park Fire Training Center. They're on Antioch and about 127th. Then Sunday is Shooting Stars at Johnson County Community College beginning at 3 p.m. Then on, I believe it's April 4th, is the museum celebration of their accreditation, and that'll begin at 10 a.m., so special activities. We do have the board retreat this afternoon on the budget. I would remind everyone that the county charter speaks directly to the county manager consulting with county commissioners before making the recommended budget, and so that board retreat accomplishes that. We do have a request for a executive session for 10 minutes. Ms. Allen Brand, we are at 11:43. We will take a short break and come back for agenda review. Let's do the executive session maybe at 12:10 or 12:15.
how about if we do 12:15 and take a break, so that we have time for a break first?
Well, that's fine, then you have to have lunch, so, it's a 10-minute request for 10 minutes.
Okay, so
So-
should I just go ahead and do the time now and?
Well, yeah, let's begin the executive session at 12:10
Okay,
for 10 minutes, and we'll see if we can get done with the agenda review before that time.
okay. So we would,
Begin at 12:10, reconvene at 12:20.
got it, thank you. I move the board recess an open meeting to commence an executive session at 12:10 a.m. for the period of 10 minutes for the purpose of receiving the advice of counsel and to preserve attorney-client privilege, and to reconvene an open session in this room at approximately 12:20 or soon thereafter, as the executive session may end.
Second, Hanslick.
Motion has been made and seconded in regards to the executive session request. Clerk, please call the roll.
I would like to stipulate, I think it's 12:10 p.m.
Yes,
that-
I'm sorry, I didn't say.
Thank you. And who did have the second on that?
Ms.
Thank you. Commissioner Fast.
Aye.
Commissioner Myers.
Myers, aye.
Commissioner O'Hara.
Yes.
Commissioner Hanslick,
Hanslick, aye.
Commissioner Ashcraft,
Yes.
Commissioner Allenbrand,
Ellen Brand, aye.
and Chairman Eilert.
Aye. I have 7 votes in favor, motion carried. So we are in recess. We'll take a short break and come back for agenda review. Thank you all very much.